You can love someone deeply and still feel the distance growing between you. Sometimes because they hurt you, more often because you simply healed. Healing gives you something you never had before: choice. The power to put yourself first, to set the boundaries you were never allowed to set. This isn't about leaving people behind. It's not about cutting people off, labeling anyone toxic, or putting someone on the naughty stool. But it is also not about staying in what harms you. There is a difference between distance that comes from a healed place and distance that comes from the wound. And we're going to talk about both. It is about what happens when you become someone new. So many of these bonds were built around who you used to be. And you cannot keep being who you used to be just to keep the bond intact. When you change, naturally, the connection changes with you. No one here is the fall guy. This is the natural movement of two souls. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is honor the distance instead of forcing a closeness that no longer fits. Sometimes our energy no longer aligns, and that is okay. When I began healing from my childhood, something started to shift in me. I started wanting more for myself. I stopped blurring the past to make other people comfortable. I started requiring more in how I was treated, and I started showing up differently from a more healed place. And I was told I had become hard, that I had changed, that they knew something was wrong with me because they could not figure out what was happening. They were watching me become someone they did not recognize, and they had no language for it. So they reached for the only explanation that had made sense to them. Something must be wrong with her. But here is the truth. I was becoming someone who finally honored myself. Someone who would no longer shrink to keep the peace. I was not hardening. I was softening. Because as I worked through the pain, as I released the heartache and the blame I had carried for so long, I began to live from a different place, a place of unconditional love. I stopped seeing the people around me through the labels we assign each other. I stopped seeing roles and started seeing souls. I stopped requiring the people in my life to be who I needed them to be. A parent to parent me the way I longed for. A sibling to meet me as a sibling. A friend to stay who they were when we met. I released them from the weight of it, and I let them simply be who they are. And I thought that this softening, this releasing, would bring me closer to people. But something unexpected happened. The distance grew. Because when you stop needing people to be who you needed them to be, when you stop meeting them in the old wound, some of them no longer know how to meet you at all. It does not mean I loved them any less. The love did not leave. The closeness did. And I had to learn that those are not the same thing. And that taught me something about why this happens. Why healing, the very thing that makes us more loving, so often creates distance in people we love. To understand that, we have to look at how we come into each other's lives in the first place. Here is something I have come to understand. We come into each other's lives, meeting at the wound we were in at the time. Think about the people you were closest to. So often the bond formed because you were both standing in the same place, the same pain, the same stage of life, the same way of seeing the world. You recognized something in each other, and that recognition became the foundation of the relationship. And there is nothing wrong with that. That is how human connection works. We find the people who match us where we are. But here is what that means. When you heal the wound, you leave the place where you met, and the other person is still there, relating to the version of you that used to stand beside them. That is why they cannot recognize you. It is not that they are blind or cruel or wrong. They are simply reaching for someone who no longer lives there. You did not abandon them. You grew past the wound that brought you together, and that is allowed. Now, I need to say something important here, because there is a culture rising right now that I want us to look at honestly. The culture of cutting people off. It has become almost a badge of honor. Someone upsets you, you cut them off. Someone disappoints you, you cut them off. And I understand where it comes from. For a long time, many of us had no boundaries at all. So the swing toward protecting ourselves makes sense. But I want to offer something more loving and honest than cutting people off. Because here is what I have learned. There are two kinds of distance, and they can look identical from the outside while being completely different underneath. There is distance that comes from a healed place. This is the distance we have been talking about. You grew, the bond shifted, and you let it change without resentment. There is no anger in it, no need to punish. You simply honor that you are in different places now, and you wish them well as you go. And then there is a distance that comes from the wound. This is the distance created from unprocessed pain, from anger that has not been felt all the way through, from the part of us that wants to protect but is really still reacting. This kind of distance often dresses itself up as a boundary, but underneath it is the wound making the decision. It is the naughty stool. It is putting someone in time out as a punishment and calling it growth. And here is why this matters. Because if you create distance from the wound, you carry the wound with you. The relationship ends, but the pain does not. You have not healed it. You have just relocated it. So the question is not whether to create distance. Sometimes distance is exactly right. The question is where the distance is coming from. Am I moving away from this person because I have healed and we no longer align? Or am I cutting them off because I am still bleeding and this feels like control? One creates freedom. The other just moves the cage. Now, I want to talk about something that keeps more people trapped than almost anything else. And I want to approach it with tenderness because I know how delicate this is. Family is the most influential group of people in a person's life. They are our first mirror, the first place we learned who we were, what love looked like, what we could expect from the world. No bond runs deeper or shapes us more. So when we talk about distance here, we are touching something tender, and I do not take that lightly. The thing that keeps so many people bound is the belief that family is sacred in a way that overrides everything else. That blood is a trump card. That no matter what was done to you, no matter how much pain you carry, you should swallow it and stay. Because they are family. And if you do step back, the shame quickly comes. You are cold. You are bitter. You abandon your own people. How could you do that to family? I want to offer a different way of seeing it, because I do not believe that staying bound in a relationship out of obligation is any healthier than painting that person as a villain. They are two sides of the same distortion. One makes the person bad. The other makes the bond sacred beyond all questioning. And neither one tells the truth. The truth is that we are all on our own journeys. every single one of us. And when you can offer grace to that, when we can understand that another person is exactly where they are on their path, it gives our own soul permission to honor itself, not from a place of anger, not from revenge, but from the understanding that your healing has to become your priority. And I know that word, priority, can feel uncomfortable. Putting yourself first sounds selfish to a lot of us, especially those of us raised to put everyone else first. But hear me on this. Self first is not selfish. It is self-honoring. There is a difference, and the world blurs that line constantly. Selfish takes at the expense of others. Self-honoring simply refuses to abandon itself for others. And I want to be clear here because this is important. This does not mean every family bond should be released. Not at all. I am talking about families who love each other with unconditional love inside of a healthy dynamic. Friendships that have stood the test of time. People who grow together and stay close through every season. The bonds that leave room for you to fall and are there to reach out a hand to brush you off and lift you back up. That is one of the most beautiful things this life offers. One playbook does not blanket all people. This is not a teaching that says leave. It is a teaching that says you are allowed to choose from a place of honesty. Rather, a bond is one you stay bound to out of fear and obligation, or one you remain in because it is genuinely healthy and loving. The label of family does not answer the question for you. Only your own honest heart can. So if it is not about cutting people off, and it is not about staying bound out of obligation, what is it about? It is about releasing. And I need to draw a clear line here because these two things get confused all the time. Cutting someone off and releasing someone are not the same act. They come from completely different places. Cutting off is a verdict. It says you are bad, you are guilty, and I am removing you as your punishment. It holds the person in your energy as something to be condemned. There is a charge in it, a heat. Releasing is the opposite. Releasing says, I love you. I honor where you are, and I am no longer going to force a closeness that neither of us can hold right now. It sets the person down with care. It frees them, and it frees you. One holds on by holding against. The other lets go with love. But here is what makes releasing possible. Letting go of the labels. Our human language is full of labels, and every one of them comes with a list of expectations attached. Mother, husband, father, sister, friend. The moment we assign the label, we assign everything we believe that person is supposed to be. And then we suffer when they cannot be. But when you release the label, you release the expectation with it. You stop needing them to be the role, and you start seeing them as what they actually are. A soul on their own journey, doing the best they can with where they are. Think of it like a tree. It begins as a seedling. You plant it, you water it, and it begins to grow. And as it reaches up toward the sky, it rises far above the grass it grew beside. Not because it looks down on the grass or thinks itself better or has abandoned what it grew beside. It simply would rather breathe and reach toward the light. It is following its own nature. That is what growth is. Not superiority, not judgment. Just a soul reaching for the light, the way it was always meant to. And a soul reaching for the light cannot stay rooted in the places it has outgrown. And when you release someone, you are not closing a door on them. You are opening one for both of you. And here is what I have found. The more I understand all of this, the distance that comes from outgrowing someone feels different than other kinds of loss. It is lighter somehow, less consuming. Because when you understand that the relationship brought you exactly what it was meant to, that the lesson was learned, that it survived its purpose, you can let it go without the same ache. The relationship was not a failure, it was a teacher. And when the teaching is complete, the soul is allowed to move on. Some souls are ready for the next lessons. Others are still learning the one they're in. So when you outgrow someone, you do not have to carry it as a wound. You can carry it as gratitude for what it taught you, for who it helped you become, and for the freedom you both have to keep walking your own path. And I want to leave you with this soul musing to sit with. The language of the soul is freedom. It came here whole, yet it chose to grow, because growth is freedom. It took on this human experience not to fix what was broken, but to evolve beyond even its own perfection. And I will leave you with these questions for reflection. The person you have grown distant from, did you lose them, or did you simply heal past the wound that first brought you together? The distance you are creating, is it freedom, or is it the wound still making your decisions for you? This is one I have asked myself many times in my own relationships with family. If they were not family, if there were no label at all, would you still choose them? Wherever you are in this, whether you are the one growing, the one being grown beyond, or both at once, I hope you walk away knowing there is no villain here, only souls doing their best, meeting and parting as they were always meant to do. Because I truly believe that when we begin healing ourselves, we create more compassion, more understanding, and ultimately a better world for everyone. With so much love, I'll see you in the next one, dear soul.